Hello everyone. Welcome to Carnival of Poetry. This is the Carnival of Poetry session of September 2021. And for this session, we are going to talk about this theme of peace and harmony. First, I'd like to invite our 6 poets and also Ashik for this event. And among the 6 poets, we are lucky to have 5 of us with us here, and one Shamanas will play the video that he has sent us. Peace and harmony, as this is the topic of this time. I would like to say a few words about it before I move on to and give the mic to pass the mic to Ashik and other poets. Peace and harmony, why we thought about this topic suddenly for this month is like lots of things in the previous months have been going on around, and we were kind of like quite a bit disturbed about lots of things happening in this world and how peace has become important and again a question in this world. So at this point we found out that this question of migration, the question of like how peace is disrupted at certain points and how migration happens and how people search for home. And also after the corona time, not only the peace in a worldly sense, also the peace in an inner sense become much more important, because we have found out young people going through like lots of mental health problems, and there's lack of this awareness that Ashke is going to again tell us a bit about, like put some light on that. So how people are trying to work on that, how people are trying to think of that, that is a big problem of our time. So when like recently the university has started and I went to the university and talked with some of our students, so suddenly I have seen this reverse effect. So when the lockdown started, we had this effect that okay, we have to stay at home 24/7, and what do we do? Like, how can we cope up with that life? Now students are having this reverse effect. When they're coming back to the university suddenly, they don't know how to again mingle with all the people, how to talk with so many people at once. Sometimes some people feel like very much, I won't say shocked, but very much like overwhelmed by this situation. And so in that case, like when you talk with people, you understand people, there's also a lack of inner peace and harmony that we are searching for, we want to reach, but somewhere this is getting lost in this all this turmoil of the world. So in this lack of inner peace and also this turmoil of the outer peace, of the worldly peace, we thought like this will be one interesting point that we should talk about. And our poets here, who has different views of and who are coming from different backgrounds, should put their poetry to put some light on this topic and enlighten us on what's happening in this world, or how we can view peace and harmony in this modern world. So this is our inspiration or motivation of choosing this topic, and we are looking forward to hear from the poets more about this topic, and through their poetry to understand how we can use or how we can learn through poetry to reach the peace and harmony in this world of turmoil. So thank you for listening to my blabbering for this long. And now I'll pass the mic first to Ashik, and then we'll move on to our standard poetry sessions as you are used to in Carnival of Poetry. So hi Ashik. So Ashik is from Red Cross Singapore, and he has been part of this awareness program. So Ashik, like, can you tell us a bit about how this awareness program works, or how, as we have, as I have seen at least, like after this lockdown and stuff, like mental awareness has become, mental health and awareness about that has become a big topic, and a topic that we should discuss more and more about. So what's your take on that?
Thank you, Basu. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashik. I'm the subject specialist for mental health and psychosocial support. The current situation, the current pandemic has taken a toll on the well-being, on people's well-being. But in many ways, right, it's not just about the loss of routine, the loss of normalcy. It's also the rapid changes that are always happening and challenging people's coping and coping capacity. We do have the internal ability to adapt and cope, but repeated asks for us to adapt may challenge our coping capacity drastically, and for some people, it may push them towards a state of vulnerability. There are many ways that we can do, not just for ourselves, but for each other. But it's important for us to recognize that the state of vulnerability is not something that is only designed for some people. Every one of us can be vulnerable given the situation, given the state of being, given our life experiences, and given the resources that we have at play. I'm happy to share with you more about psychosocial well-being and more towards how we can achieve our well-being, even while we go through this pandemic together. I should clarify that one interpretation of psychosocial well-being is about being able to make decisions calmly, do what we want to do, addressing our needs, and move towards our aspirations, all in all to achieve that deep sense of fulfillment, satisfaction, and inner joy. We do this through self-care and routine. Some of us run, but during lockdown or during QO, it's harder for us to go outdoors. So we start to do things indoor, aerobics, listen to music, reading, Netflixing, right? But there are also those of us who find solace, comfort, connection in words. Writing itself is one of the oldest ways for us to self-care. And it is as old as the first community itself. Poetry, novel, and other works of literature have long had the power to inspire the self and others. It is more than just about writing though. Writing itself is a labor of love, expression of intellect, your values, your knowledge, your experience. It's an overall expression of being. This makes writing an effective way to care for the self and others. It can connect a community through its pages and stays with them even after the book is complete. And that's one of the most beautiful things that we realize today because of the pandemic and how communities are struggling to cope. Alternatively, we also have heard reports of how animals, pets at home, help people cope through the pandemic. If I could offer another connection between psychosocial well-being and poetry, this would be a bit oversimplified, but I would say that offering psychosocial support is a bit like a comma. It gives a chance for the next sentence to be written, the next page to be read, the next chapter to be had. It gives space for more to be written and nurtures hope for tomorrow. And in many communities, we realize that it's very important to give space, and we appreciate the ambiguity for its opportunity, for the space to write a better tomorrow. And to those who may be newer to the work of poetry, to the work of the words, right? We welcome you. It is said that there are many wells within our hearts, some fill with every good rain, but there are those that require a special type of rain. Do give a poetry a chance to fill your well. That is my share today. I hope that as we celebrate poetry, words from the soul that go beyond healing the writers, right? We celebrate how words unite the community. It's not just the local community in this region. Just by reading the work, I was very interested in this because when I was overseas, I read the poetry of someone in another community, and it was very interesting because while we were there, the children, I was reading to them this particular book of poetry so the book itself is from Indonesia, but I was over there in Bangladesh, and we were sharing together, and they were asking so many questions, and just by sparking the imagination of how other communities doing, of how lives could be different, it sparks imagination, it sparks hope for a better tomorrow, and it gives them this sense of wonder of what could go on tomorrow. It's that sense of hope that we want to achieve through our self-care, through our routine, through words, because we never truly can understand the extent to what our words can inspire. And with that, let the words that we hear today fill our wells as we ourselves spend our stories. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ashik, for sharing your bits, and that's very interesting. And as we all know, the Migrant Writers of Singapore is trying to work on this mental health awareness programs and trying to work on poetry as a format of that. And we'd like to talk with you more and get more and more of your help in this direction. So thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us this idea about what's happening around and what we should do. So thank you, Asik, again. So now we'll go back to our traditional poetry sessions. So we'll go back to our poets and we'll start one by one. And as we all know, by the tradition of Carnival of Poetry, we go in the sequence of the poets in the alphabetical order of their name. So we'll start with Daryl, and then we'll go one by one. So, hi, Daryl.
Hello.
Hello. So Daryl is our poet from Singapore. So I think most of the viewers in here would have read his poem, or like at least the book Food Republic that he has co-edited. So yeah, I really like that one because when I moved out of Singapore, I think more than the sun, what I miss is the food. That's really something you miss when you change places. So that was a book I really thoroughly enjoyed. And there's another book that is coming up from Daryl, right? Another poetry and book that you have written.
That's right. Yeah.
So you can maybe share a few words about that, and also we are, eager to know about your poetry and your take on peace and harmony.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Basu. And just what a great honor to be here on a lovely Sunday. Just enjoying the company of each other and listening to each other's words and beautiful writing. I'm Daryl, and yeah, I'm from Singapore. My first collection is called The Book of Changes, and as Basu mentioned, I co-edited a book called Food Republic that was published last year. And my next collection of poetry is coming out later this year. It's called Anything But Human. And so when I was asked to contribute to this, I was thinking about what really speaks to me about the theme. And I think in some ways, peace and harmony is an aspiration that all countries and peoples have. And yet we're also so far from it in so many cases. And yet because of the pandemic, there has been an unsettling quiet or seeming peace a lot of the time in our neighborhoods, in the lives that we lead. And so in Singapore especially, there is this sense of unsettling peace and unsettling quiet. So a lot of my poetry and the way I think about things is about finding out or thinking about what is unsettling. And so the poems that I'm reading out now, which I'll proceed to read, are poems which I think try to unsettle this notion of peace and quiet. So I think, shall I go on to read the poems now? Basu? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So you read one this time, and then we go for the second round again.
Okay, yeah, that works. Let me read one poem, which is called Domestic Bliss. So, domestic bliss. The kettle boils water to a crisp. There are orang-utans in the bath again. The orchids have eaten the cockroaches. A DJ announces the end of all war. Consider the compostability of things. The oranges in the fridge are dying the slowest death. Adultery remains a distant fantasy. No one votes for the opposition. The toilet does everything it is told to do. Wake up to the highest possible grade of birdsong. A fifth of the cutlery has been used just once. None of the doors can be locked. The smell of rain has seeped into the sugar. Each room cultivates its particular version of truth. Where there was silence, there is now more. Okay, that was my first reading for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think so would you like to give some insight about this poem? Typically sure. I start asking questions, but yeah,
it's actually about Singapore in many ways, where in Singapore, I think you get this sense that things are always working very well, things are running very well, there's this efficiency and calm and peace, but actually underneath the surface, there's a lot of unease or contradictions about lots of things. And I think it's not just one, and there's no specific thing that I'm thinking about, but it's a whole array of things, like the inequality, tensions that are below the surface. So this poem is really about that, but to do it in a very sideways sort of way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the analogies were pretty interesting, and yeah. So okay, that's I think an interesting point you have like put forward is like this silence or the peace, the quote unquote peace, that we feel around, we have felt around during specifically the lockdown, the quarantine, and all this time, uh, is kind of like very unsettling. And sometimes, yeah, really, this quiet can be really unsettling. Like, so I think it is an interesting take that I didn't anticipate in the beginning, but yeah, thank you for putting it up.
Not at
So
all. Thank you.
the next, I'll move to our next poet. So in alphabetical order, our next poet is Krishna Chamling. Hi, Krishna. So Krishna is our poet from Nepal, and he is the department head of English at KNK, and he has been an assistant professor of English in so Himalayan Institute. So just correct me if I'm not saying it correctly. So it was Himalayan White House International College, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has been in other positions of like mainly teaching and training in English. And he is a well-known poet in Nepal, mainly writing in English language, and received many awards and honors across the continents. And also his poems has been translated in many languages. So without further ado, I'll pass the mic to Krishna. And Krishna, like, can you tell us a few words about peace and harmony and your poetry and how you relate with this theme?
Thank you very much. Shall I recite my poetry directly or something to tell something else? Okay, about to talk
It's
about
up to
peace.
you. Yeah, the mic is yours. Like,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I have here one poetry: the world, hope, unity, and peace. Little longer topics title. So whatever I write, I think when I begin to write my poetries, any kind of creative works, so in my mind comes the whole world. So what is happening in Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe. So that sort of things, ideas that comes into my mind. Consider what is happening in the Middle East. So that sort of things that happens because we all people are rational human being, rational creature, and that naturally that touches our heart and mind when somewhere else something happens bad. For example, say war, some kind of religious type of things, discrimination. For example, we see recently 5-6 months ago happened in Myanmar, and recently happened in Afghanistan, in Eastern Europe, last between Russia and Ukraine, and in Nigeria, Africa, even within United States, there's so much developed country, so popular among the nation countries. So if you see inside it, so many things is going on there, so many discrimination, so many poverty, so many disease, so many blatant things is going on across the world. So even when Jenny Lin gave me this title, so world peace and unity. So that's what I thinking with those ideas, and this is very important thing to write about and peace and harmony. But where is the peace and harmony actually? How shall we achieve this? So this is the very question that everybody, even across the world, even some United Nations and some related organization, they are sending me to write about peace, something else. But actually, writing is one thing, and in reality, to achieve this thing is another thing. So every time planned action and harmony is necessary there. But where is the harmony if you see in the world? So many religious people, they are fighting each other in the name of religion. For example, we see in India, different thing is happening. So across the whole world, it is getting in chaos. So that's what some of the things I have written here, because harmony happens when there is a peace. This is a vis-a-vis, or where there is harmony and then will there a peace. But actually harmony is that that is linked with, that relies in our heart, whereas peace, it needs silence. And without silence and that harmony which resides into human hearts, actually difficult to achieve this. Only talking and doing this, that doesn't happen, but it needs action. But what kind of action? So how to do that action? Who will lead that? So if this vast set of things comes, then we reach to the headquarters of United Nations. But United Nations, it has another story. So that's what with this national, international, socio-cultural, political, religious. So so many things it touches, this topic, this title touches. So with this, I have written this. Let me recite my poetry. The title is "The World of Unity and Peace." The sky along with its stars, and the earth with new generation of culture products aren't in harmony. Harmony, they are misleading, disregarding to ease with ideological, socio-economical, political vested interest, escalating intolerance, violence, and chaos. In the world of majestically serene green planet, the earth, where men, the most rational being, have lost their virtues and ethics in every part, media to market, religious values to politics, knowledge and expertness with deftness and enlightened analytical approaches. Now the seeds of hope must be formed through these social, cultural stars, intellectuals, enlightened souls. Let them usher in the darkness, in the fields of wastelands, disintegrated, degraded with mayhems and disruptions, for equality, and united for bringing a united front of unity from its peace, colors of diversity, of sin of mankind. However, unity within the diversity, unity within the diversity, not a diversity in unity, an old cliche, dysfunctional in today's heterogeneous, culturally diversifying panoramic Shangri-La, are the tiny iron wickets to protect and preserve the plants of peace in at places and times, to galvanize the bedrocks of peace have been as Mary Celeste, for cooperation and harmony, to the concept of humanity and human values. In this, everything is specifying the global world. That's it. Thank you. So,
Thank you.
Basu, may I ask the insight? So, I have brought the Mary Celeste here. Mary Celeste, when I was in school, I read the story about Mary Celeste. Is a ship. It is in the Pacific Ocean. The Mary Celeste is there. The wherever the wind blows it, she blows that way. And it is captainless, manless. later it happened that when some people went there to see why it is why the where the wind blowing it is blowing that way. No one else there. And when later some people went there and entered, there was no one else. Only the tables and plates were there. Recently eaten food on the tables, but there is no any human beings. So it was just like a Malicity where the wind was blowing her. She was blowing that way. So that was the concept I brought it to Malicity, because in
Okay.
peace exactly it is happening actually like Mary Celeste. It is blowing
Okay.
here in this. Everybody talks, but actually, where is that peace is?
Okay.
That's what
I
I brought
think,
this idea
yeah,
here.
that's an interesting analogy. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I heard, I didn't remember the name of the ship, but yeah, I can now relate with the story. Yeah. Yeah, so that's an interesting analogy because yeah, the question you have raised is, I think, a valid question, that where is actually the peace where when we are searching for it so much. So
Yeah.
in one side, like in some of the places, the
Yes.
silence is making, or the like apparent peace is there, but like still we are not peaceful from inside. In
Yeah.
another places, like we don't have worldly peace at all.
Actually.
So where is it going from inside and out? So I think that's a valid question, and yeah, we are looking for the answer, obviously.
Okay.
But yeah, we should ask questions also. Without questions, like
Yeah. Yeah.
there
Yeah.
won't be any answers. So thank you for raising the question, and we'll come back again
Thank
to
you very
you.
much, Basu sir.
Yeah. So after this, according to the rule, we should go to nice, but Srishti has communicated that she has to do it a bit earlier. So we'll put Srishti now in the sequence. So Srishti,
Yeah.
yeah, hi. So
Hello.
Srishti is a freshman in the SMU, Singapore Management University, and she's writing poetry, and she wants to share her poetry and thoughts about peace and harmony with us. Srishti, the stage is yours.
Yeah, so my poem actually deals with sort of external peace and why do we need peace in the time of violence and how peace emerges as a greatest solution ever. So I'll start with it. From path of bloodshed to a peaceful road ahead. That's the title. And I'll start now. Under the starry sky and the warmth of my mother's lap, on the terrace of my crumbling, brick-laden house, I sleep to my mother's narrative voice. She tells me not fairy tales or some distant land, nor mystic stories of exotic beings. She tells me about the monsters among us, the monsters who split everything apart, the monsters who took my grandma away, the monsters who threw us from our own homes. It was a nightmare for a 12 years heart. 4 years hence, I saw the horror unfold, the planes, the marching soldiers, and the screams. My eyes throbbing red with tears and crimson with rage. How could they disrupt our community and harmony? How could they trample upon our dreams? All but revenge coursing through my veins. 10 years hence, I stand in front of the very building that crushed us. I wear the crisp black suit with the derby shoes I despised. I speak and write the foreign language I forever resisted. I work with the people who unleashed this horror upon us. The 16-year-old me would be frowning upon my state, screaming and shouting that I betrayed my own. But I do this not to become one of them. I do this to prevent us from becoming them. We can still fight. We can do what they did to us. But that only brings more sorrow and pain. That only besmirches our hands red with blood. I know we crave answers, but violence is not the solution. I know we want a vengeance, but more bloodshed doesn't serve justice. To stretch out a hand for peace, to put an end to this unjust fight, to look into the oppressor's eyes not with boiling rage, but as another ally, is far greater, is far nobler. To build than to break, to laugh than to scream, to forgive than to forget, to be at peace than to unleash violence, is what I want, is what a leader wants, And it is what this nation needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Srishti. Thank you for the nice poem. So, may I know the story behind it? Because it seems like there's a story behind the poem, and from somewhere it's getting inspired. Can you share that with us?
I think it is a general experience of the relationship between a colonized country and the colonizers, and when they leave, and what happens to the nation, what happens to the peace and balance of the nation. And particularly in this case, it could be taken as an example, like from South Africa to my own country, India. Like in South Africa, how they build peace after suffering through so much. They build a nation upon that peace and the community between both the harmony between both the communities. So that was a general inspiration, and how we can take inspiration as the world generally from that example, build peace in such situations.
Okay, I see. So, okay, that's an interesting point or view of looking into it. But so there can be these interesting questions, and that in these post-colonial countries or places, colonial in different senses of the word, not only colonialism. So you see, there's this inherent nature of ruptured peace in the culture, right? So because often you see this cultures has become or got, how can I say, got manipulated by default by texture in some ways, that this violence or this kind of like um yeah, so oppressing on the silent, on the more quiet part of the society has become a kind of law, or kind of just a tradition. So, and that tradition goes on with this post-colonial world. So and as you have seen the example of India, South Africa, you can relate with the history and you see that happens, right? So yeah, so how do you think that fits in your poetry? Because it felt like there's some intergenerational stuff, like story or flow of this thing that you also put up in your poetry. So can you relate that, or can you put that in your poetry scope?
Asma did not exactly get what you were trying to address. Was it the oppressor's voice, or was it the silent voice, or the intergenerational gap? What should I address?
So what I said, okay, then I made a complex statement. Okay, I understand. So the next, what I wanted to say simply is like this so the colonial tradition of this oppression of this kind of ruling a certain part of people, that gives you this kind of violent experiences that even in the post-colonial world flows on through generations. And this intergenerational experience is still in there in these colonized countries, again, you can take any example of South Africa, India, whatever. So maybe not consciously, maybe subconsciously, maybe through this inclination to English, through this inclination to a certain way of thinking and all this. So so since you have talked about this intergenerational relation, so can you shed some light, or am I understanding it right, or can you put it in your poetry
Yeah, I
scope?
got your point. So when I bring the example of my nation, which was colonized, so it was my grandparents who actually went through the fight, the partition, and the whole bloodshed part. But when I come and look towards my generation, there are so many things that we see the glimpses of this post-colonial sort of thing, because of the universities and the language that they're teaching. So for us as a nation, especially for me, my schooling was entirely in English and not in my own native language, which speaks volumes about how the colonial values and everything has reflected, and also the laws and everything after the colonizers leave the nation. Sort of the colonized countries are not ready to let go of everything they left behind. Like there are so many structures and infrastructures they've built, so many laws that were made by them that are still in existence. There are so many laws. It's especially the sedition law, which is highly controversial, but still people have this sort of entrenched value to still go on with it. So I feel what happened 50 years ago and what we are going towards now, there is an absolute gap between that, because when we started at that point of view, we whereas like we were the silenced voice which you addressed, but as we go on and talk about our independence and our freedom and our plight for that, we have progressed from that to a very open and free democracy where we have rights and everything. And I think we are no more that silenced voice. Any community, for that matter, it's a minority, it's a majority, it's some sort of a scheduled area or anything, they are slowly progressing, and slowly everybody's trying to gain this voice in this new democracy that we are juggling with. And I think there is this sort of a balance that needs to be maintained between the post-colonial values and the independence that we are gaining in this world today.
Thank you for sharing your take with us. So we'll come back to you in the next round, and we'll now move to our next point. So again, we'll go back to the alphabetical order. So this time it is Nice. Hello, Nice.
Hello.
Yeah. So Nice is our poet from Indonesia, and she is going to share her take and her poetry with us about peace and harmony. Nice. The stage is yours, please.
Okay. Thank you for time for me. Hello everybody. My name is Nais Ayu. I am come from East Java, Indonesia. I am stay here to working and working. I stay Singapore. How long? 13 years already. I stay in Singapore, but I want to planning this next year. Planning that is next year want to go back to Indonesia, then open the shop like this. Just planning. My contributor to the this year in the MSP, my group, this is memory of the life. Then my hobby is writing poetry and learning new things, something like this. Then something I got learning is I know nothing to do at home like this. I like to try something like the accessories like this, so I can be happy to myself, like accessories like this. So this one is my hobby. Another my hobby also cooking, something cooking, try new recipe like this. Then thank you for time for me. Then I so happy today can meeting my friend before I go home to Indonesia. I hope to you all my friend and contact to me to Indonesia next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nice. So yeah, we'd like to hear your poem. And also good luck for your journey to Indonesia. Like obviously next time, if I can visit there, like which is a country I really love to go around, then obviously I will yeah ask about your shop and obviously go there.
Absolutely.
So Nice, would you like to share the poem with us?
Yes, brother.
Nice. Are you?
Yes.
Okay. Are you speaking?
Oh. Then what you sorry, what you asking me?
So can you read your poem that you have for us?
My poem.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Sorry ya, my poem is my language, Indonesia language ya. Embun. Pagi setelah malam berlalu, datang waktu di mana insan mulai membuka mata. Burung-burung nampak ceria. Dia menyambut gembira. Setiap tetesanmu selalu merasuk ke tulangku, membuatku, menambahku energiku, membangunkan semangatku. Engkau penyucuk jiwa ragaku. Bunga-bunga di sekeliling kita ikut merasakan aliran tetesanmu. Dia tersenyum manja. Seakan enggan biarkan layu karenamu. Embun, engkau sejukkan hati. Engkau sirami jiwa dalam hidupku. Di setiap tetesmu selalu mengandung arti. Damaikan hatiku berada di sisimu. Thank you.
Thank you, nice. Thank you for your poem. So can you share a bit in English? What is the summary of your poem? Sorry that I still don't know the Bhasha after going to the country for so many times. But can you share a bit in English for our audience? Like, what did you want to say with your poem?
Sorry, but my English like this, so like no good like this. So I sorry.
I think it's okay. Don't worry. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay. Don't worry that.
Yeah.
So yeah, our Bhasha is also even worse, right? So
Yeah,
don't worry.
but like this,
Just
I like to learning all your speak like this, so I can listening like this so happy. Thank you.
okay, okay. Okay, so thank you for sharing your poem. Nice. And now we'll move to our next poet. So since Shaminaz is not here, so we'll move to Shukria. So Shukria is our next poet. Shukria Rezaei is actually from Afghanistan, and now she is living in UK, in Oxford. For the last 1 decade, she is living in there, and she has been writing about her community, which is the Hazara community, and her poetries were featured across in online media, in BBC, and lots of other places. So, Shukriya, the stage is yours, and we'd like to listen to your take on poet and in peace and harmony, and obviously your poetry.
Hi everyone, thank you Basu for that introduction. Actually that's vital to all the poems I'm going to read today. So yeah, I'm from Afghanistan. I've been living here in the UK for about 10 years now, and most of my poems are pretty much based on my experiences. So I haven't quite recently written much since moving to university and things, but I used to write quite a lot in school. So most of the poem I'm actually reading today is from then. So it's a couple of years ago, but the feelings are still there. So yeah, this poem I'm going to read first is after the poet Rumi. So because I speak Farsi and Rumi wrote a lot of Farsi poetry, I am inspired by him. So I've written this in English, and it's pretty much just expressing my feelings about my migration. So yeah, it's called A Glass of Tea. Last year I held a glass of tea to the light. This year I swirl like a tea leaf in the streets of Oxford. Last year I stared into the navy blue sky. This year I'm roaming under colorless clouds. Last year, I watched the dazzling sun dance gracefully. This year, the faint sun moves futurelessly. Migration drove me down this bumpy road where I fell and smelt the soil, where I arose and sensed the cloud. Now I'm a bird flying in the breeze, lost over the alien earth. Don't stop and ask me questions. Look into my eyes and feel my heart. It's bruised, aching, and sore. I sit helplessly in an injured nest, not knowing how to fix it. And my heart, I'd say, is displaced, struggling to find its place. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Shukria. Thank you for sharing your poem. Yeah, so it's very interesting, like how you have put migration in here, and how do you think, like in this world when we are so after 10 years after you are in Europe, in UK, so and we have had different crises of migration, different ways of talking about migration, and that has changed completely. I think you have seen in that last 1 decade, like how it has changed. So how do you think this harmony in this new world that is more and more averse to migration and migrating and people who are coming, like there's a bit of sense of distance from this new people who are coming inside the country, and all this policy stuff, etc., are changing, and we listen to lots of news about that. So how do you think from your experience it has changed over time, and how do you think, like, whether we are going to peace and harmony, or like we are going away from it actually?
Living in the UK, I personally have had a good sort of time, I'd say, and I'm slowly to, beginning to feel home, if you like the word home here. So with the new crisis that's, hit us recently and also over the past few years with the Syrian refugees here, I think, slowly, I'm just talking generally, a lot of people are welcoming of refugees and migrants, but you will have obviously some others who might not be as welcoming and, would rather, at least help the people here themselves. But yeah, it seems like, the nations need to do a lot together to welcome these people who are displaced. But yeah, at the moment, there's only so much they can do. And the UK this year has already accepted to take on 20,000 Afghan refugees. So yeah, we are just, we have seen quite a few in our own city here as well that have been, relocated. But unfortunately, yeah, with many disasters happening, man-made, all of them, our only option is to, put our efforts together and, sort or at least help some of these people.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your point of view, and yeah, it is very interesting. So we'll come back again, and like we'll uh, try to know more about your experience and your poetry and your take on that. So last but not the least, the poet who couldn't be with us today is Shah Minaz. So Shah Minaz is actually from Singapore, actually from Bangladesh, and he is living in Singapore for last, I think, 7 years. So he's from Dinajpur, a place in Bangladesh, and he is working here from 2015, and he has been writing. I know, like almost I know him from 2016, so like almost for last 4-5 years, and yeah. So he generally likes to read books, write poetry, listen to music, and like he generally writes about social injustice, corruption, political crisis, and inhuman activities. So he mainly writes in Bengali, and also his poems got published across Bangladesh and Singapore. So without further ado, and I think like I have given enough introduction or opinion on his behalf, so we'll listen to his poem. And Karisha, can you play Shah's poem for us?
Hi, this is Shah Menhaj. My poem name is Last Night Poem. I walked in the smoke of half-burnt sadness, the path of that old dark night. I have seen many stars burn alone. I have seen countless windows open at every moment in the world. But why? I never interested to know that. It seemed to me my whole life seems to be patching like a dream in my sleep. I have a long way to go before I wake up. Sometimes I used to look with the pinch in my left hand to understand the difference between dreams and reality. I am not rich. If I were, I would think about the past and the present. Why? My arrival in the world for no purpose. No purpose. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Karisa, did we start from the beginning, or it seemed like we started a bit in the middle?
Hi, this is Shah Minhas. My poem name is Last Night Poem. I walked in the smoke of half-burnt sadness, the path of that old dark night. I have seen many stars burn alone. I have seen countless windows open at every moment in the world. But why? I never interested to know that. It seemed to me my whole life seems to be patching like a dream in my sleep. I have a long way to go before I wake up. Sometimes I used to look with the pinch in my left hand to understand the difference between dreams and reality. I am not rich. If I were, I would think about the past and the present. Why? My arrival in the world for no purpose. No purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank Shah for sharing his poem. And I think, like, at least my interpretation is like he's trying to talk about the futility of existence in front of this situation. But yeah, again, this is my interpretation, and it would be better if he would have been with us and share his views. So without further ado, like, we'll move to the next round now, and we'll again like start with our poets and like go on in sequence. So yeah, we have seen interesting texts about peace and harmony, like from different points of view. From Daryl's point of this silent, silent quote unquote peace that is in lots of developed countries, in our cultures, how we see it, and specifically during the lockdowns. Krishna has asked like different questions that's pretty interesting about the present times and the present status quo of peace and harmony that we see. Well, Shukria has talked about like the experience of migration and how you can find out harmony in these two different worlds, bridging them, and also like so also Srishti has talked about this idea of peace and harmony, how we can visualize it in a post-colonial world. So there are different point of views that we have seen already, and we'd like to see more from our poets, that how we can perceive this and how do they perceive that through their poetry. So without further ado, we'll go to Daryl. So hi Daryl, welcome
Hi
back
again.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I will read another poem.
yeah.
And this one still builds on the theme of that contradiction between and that strange piece of becoming of a developed country, and yet there is this tension of disaster and horrible things that are about to happen. And there's a sense of disaster, I think, we know from the environment and ecologically, and even like things like nuclear warfare or chemical warfare. So the poem is called Age of Miracles, and it's basically about how we use technology to do good and amazing things, but also terrible things. Age of Miracles. Terror ate our gut flora, while the post office suspended habeas corpus. I have waited 50 years for running water and aerosol cheese. Before our Lord I deigned to perspire, the clouds bubbled with chlorine. The angels spoke of bulk discounts. The light shaved 10 pounds off my wrist. I came back to Earth with a new calendar, the months named after nerve agents. Sorry, I tried to reach you with outdated technology. Forgive me. So that was my poem, Age of Miracles.
That's interesting. Like, yeah, specifically that line with the calendar with the months named after religions. Like how you have described it is, I think, a very interesting poetically topic. Yeah, so I think that's very interesting, and that takes us back to Krishna's question, like where actually is the peace? And with this modern technology, like often this is the discussion we end up with, like with modern technology and everything going so modern, why are we going back so much in violence, so much in this thing? It seems like the history is repeating itself after 100 years or so. So what's happening? So I think that's an open question to me, and if any of you have answers, like I'd love to hear that. So yeah, so with this question, we'll go back again to Krishna. And thanks, Daryl, obviously, for the nice poem and for this.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Basu.
So we'll move now to Krishna, who asked this question before about like where's this peace and harmony in the present time. So Krishna, again, the stage is yours, and please feel free to share your poem and your thoughts.
It's me?
Yep, yeah, okay. Surely.
It's a heavy rain here.
Okay.
There's a heavy rainfall.
Okay, it never rains heavy here, like it always rains.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm reading my second poem. It's similar to the concept, but the title is different. Humanity, poverty, greed, illiteracy, and unity. Humanity, poverty, greed, illiteracy, and unity. So these are the title of my poetry. So peace, harmony, all these things has the color of politics, religion, culture. So that's what coming up here. So let me recite. Each soul graced with the crown of humanity, but poverty, cultivatedness, rudeness, and illiteracy is startling in a modern, specifying material world. Love, compassion, and care, lying, it is dying sick. In the chamber of hearts, as poverty and greed, turned men, eccentrically egoist, selfish, celebrated actors. And poverty barred proper education in this chaotic, warped world, where illiteracy, insanity, thriving like a weeds in the garden of humanity, engulfing sanity and civilization. Humans go in the walls of unity, breaking it down, painting their canvases of
I think we lost Krishna.
Yeah, it seems like. Okay. Let's hold on for a minute and see. Yeah, when it rains there, like typically in Himalayas, it rains really heavy. And I can understand why the internet is not working. So, okay. So we can wait for 1 more minute if Krishna is coming back. Otherwise, we can move on, and then again, at the end, we can listen to Krishna's poem and thoughts. So, okay. So seems like it will take a few more moments. So we'll move on to our next poet, and like once Krishna joins us, we'll obviously listen to his poem again, and like obviously his thoughts. So our next poet is Nice. So hello, Nice.
Sorry.
Yeah. So what are you knitting like? So seems like you are knitting something with wool.
Nothing lah, nobody anything. But
Okay.
my mind go there.
Okay. No. Yeah. So would you like to share your next poem with us?
Second poem, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Matahariku tersenyum seraya tampakkan wajah hangat dalam dekapan damaikan jiwa. Cahaya bersinar pancarkan kegirangan. Panasmu merasuk semangatkan rasa. Mendung yang suram berganti ceria. Langit yang kelam berubah warna. Burung-burung pun bernyanyi merdu. Seakan-akan tahu dengan kehadiranmu. Sungguh engkau pembangkit energi yang selalu menyala dalam hati. Tak hanya burung yang bisa memahami, bahkan batu-batu pun ikut berseri. Wahai matahariku, sungguh aku merindukanmu. Hangatanmu, pelukanmu, indahnya kasih sayangmu, manisnya bisikanmu, rayuanmu saat menghiburku. Thank you.
Thank you, Nice, for your sharing your poem. And yeah, so you want to share a few words about this?
I tell something. The one is matahariku is the one is my sun. Sun is the that is because the sun is give me support every day. Give me support like this, so I can be happy if the sun coming like that.
Okay. That's nice. That's interesting. And anyway, like as the winter is coming here, like really I agree with you. completely. Uh, without sun, it's very hard to find happiness in times. Yeah, so thank you for sharing your poem with us. So we'll move to our next part, and we'll again play Shamina's poem. So Karisa, can you play the next poem of Shamina's?
An invisible horror. The world is not good today. Not good people of the world. Relationships are not good. Approaching or touching. Nothing in the world is fixed. Everything is going on according to its own rules. Nature is changing its color according to its own rules. The sky is filling all the water bodies with rain its own will. Fauna is also busy with the goal of sustaining their future generation. Every day, the world is being analyzed again with the birth of a new child. God created His earth for everyone. But this is everyone world we share as we wished. In the name of religion, in the name of country, in the name of language, I moved people away. Maybe one day this invisible power called Corona will be lost from the chest of earth. Everything will be normal, like before. The world will be analyzed again with the birth of a new child. Nature will forget her cry, marries again in the green forest. Birth will get back their nest of comfort. We will get back a healthy world. But will we still be a human? Real human? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Karisa, for playing the poem of Shamanas. And again, thanks to Shah for like sharing his poems with us. I think the line I really liked is like the world is again analyzed with the birth of a new child. And I think this is a nice line that I'd like to reflect upon. So yeah, I think uh, about peace and harmony and world conditions, like it is always again reanalyzed, restructured, and should be like rethought with the birth of a new child, with a new member in our human family. So that's a pretty interesting poem. I would have loved if I could listen to Shah's take on this and like his ideas about this concept. But again, sadly, we don't have him. So we'll move obviously to our next poem and next poet, and we'll listen to her takes and points on this topic and her poetry. So Shukria, the stage is yours again. So feel free to share your poem and your thoughts with us.
Mhm. Thank you. So this poem I'm going to read is called My Worst Habit. It's just I guess it will be explanatory when I read it. So it's called My Worst Habit. My worst habit is drinking too much nostalgia until it becomes bittersweet like the bottom of a tea glass. My past seems rosy, yet afraid to go back. My thoughts lose clarity. I get tangled, knotted up in wonder. How to cure nostalgia? Give it a chance to relieve your pressure. How to cure bad habit? Send it back to yourself. Don't let nostalgia tighten your throat. Take sips of your memories all day and all night. So it's again about feeling homesick and longing. So it's just a little bit of an advice to take your memories all day and all night.
Yeah. So I think as everyone who has migrated at some point of their life, they can relate to that. And nostalgia, I think, anyway, is a part of writing poetry, right? So So like, kind of Wordsworth had said like centuries ago, that you actually go to your lazy moments and you actually chew, whatever happened before. And that's how poetry is. Poetry takes birth. So I think, yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. And again, like from your poetry's point of view, you have told us like with the university, you have, yeah, kind of paused writing for a bit. But if you think of this new situation of this peace and harmony after this COVID world, what would be your thoughts about that you'd like to share, or like what would be your new take in poetry that you'd like to share with us? So if you can share a few words about that, it would be.
Sorry, so you mean, sorry, if you could repeat the question. It's quite general.
Okay, so
So
today I think I am having less coffee or making complex sentences. So maybe so what I wanted to say is like, so you have shared your poetry that is again back from 2-3 years, as you have said, and recently I can understand with the beginning of university it gets hard, really, even like for the ones who like us who teach also, like with the beginning of university, it's very hard to write or do anything else. So I wanted to say, like, in this post-COVID world, like when the world is again changing in a certain way, and also like we can see the outer world with these changes in Afghanistan, your like home country before, and all like the things are changing again. So what will be your new take in your poetry, or like in your, what is your thought or take about that? So if you can share a few words about this new changes and how you will see peace and harmony in your poetry in future.
Oh, okay, that's much clearer. Thank you. So I haven't actually quite gotten back to writing yet, but I am hoping, since I've just literally 2 weeks ago finished with my dissertation. So now I have some free time on my hand to get started once again. I'm just waiting for a teacher of mine to start her poetry workshops so I can attend. So because, in a group, when I'm with other poets, I actually can sit down and get, put my poetry hat on and start writing. So I haven't actually gotten to that yet. But yeah, your question, I would like to perhaps start writing based on my lockdown experiences. It was very difficult to begin with. In the first lockdown, it was very new, the virus. Everyone was scared of, being around each other outside. So yeah, it will be something to think about, and how I'd reflect that on my poetry. But it's definitely something I would like to write on, given the experiences I've had through 3 lockdowns now. So that would be, yeah, thank you for asking that question. It just made me think and reflect on it. Hopefully in the next Carnival of Poetry, I will hopefully share it once I write about it.
Thank you. And we look forward to, read or listen to more of your poems. So thank you for being with us and sharing your poems. So now we'll move to our next poet, Srishti. So Srishti, the stage is yours again, and please feel free to share your poems.
Right. So it is titled A State of Peace, and I'll now begin. When our mind feels the absence of turmoil, and our soul is bound by consciousness' voice, when conflict finds no shelter in our hearts, and peace becomes a mandate, much less a choice. When our religion, gender, and class cause our roads to diverge, when both roads lead to a destination where these variances submerge, when our actions and inactions carry the welfare of all, when there is no liberation from our humanity and we become rationality's enchained thrall, when our divisions and differences create bridges, not walls, when our opinions conflict but our union never falls. In this state of society, may our fragments forever remain tied. In this state of existence, let peace and harmony reside. Thank you.
Thank you for the poem, and I think like that's a good way to conclude this session on peace and harmony. So if you want to share a few more words about your poem, or like about this poem, please feel free to.
So it was basically how in everyday life, these are small notions wherein we can observe peace and harmony, like when we don't harbor these negative thoughts about each other, when we don't see people as because of their differences and because of their gender and because of their class, religion, but we see them as our people, we see them as a part of the society, not much difference from us. So when I said, when these differences cause a road to diverge, but the destination is forever recognizing that we are a society, we are as one whole, and that unity will bring in peace. So that was what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your poem. So we'd like to thank all the poets for being here. And it seems like sadly we have lost Krishna due to the internet connection. And yeah, so sorry for that, since we cannot control the heavy rains. So yeah, so I think this has been an interesting session on peace and harmony, and I'd like to conclude like what at least I have understood or interpreted from all the poets' point of view and writing, that there's been like lots of questions about actually what is peace, what is harmony in our present time, or have we ever achieved it? And like there's been like Shah's poems or like Krishna's poem that has asked like some interesting questions about what is peace and harmony, why aren't we achieving it, why aren't we reaching here. Also Daryl's second poem asked like questions about that. So, and also there are other interesting questions that Srishti asked about this post-colonial world. And then also we see like this idea about nostalgia and migrant experiences, how actually that raises a question in your inner soul, and how you can find out peace or mitigate it inside you, as we have seen in Shukria's poems. So we can see like there's lots of somehow entangled, but somehow very different in terms of physical experience, questions about peace and harmony, which are going around in our world. And I think as human, we always seek for it, always seek for peace and harmony, but sometimes this quietness of peace and harmony and whatever is heavy beneath that is quite too heavy to carry sometimes. I think that can be, to me, that is like a violence of silence, which I quite felt during, this lockdown or this quarantine phase. So that's what I at least got the feel from Daryl's first poem. And there's other, like obviously socio-political scenarios from which this question also comes up. And also just to conclude all these questions, and just to give us hope, because poetry is always the language of hope also, is Srishti's last poem, where we just see that, if we can think all of us as one, like, just reminds me of, just while saying this line, reminds me of Lennon's Imagine, like, the brotherhood of man. So if we think of it like this, that we are one, there's some unity, there's harmony, and then I think there will be peace. And at least as poets, we always keep up our hopes. And I hope like someday we'll have another session of Carnival of Poetry, when we can call this session as like peace and harmony achieved, maybe not in our lifetime, maybe somewhere else, but yeah. So thank you everyone for sharing your poems, sharing your nice thoughts, and thank you all the poets. Thank you Singlit Station and Karisa for organizing this event and handling all this technical stuff. So without further ado, I'd like to conclude this. If any of the poets have anything to say or anything for the conclusion, please feel free to. So yeah, I have said quite a bit and lots of my part. I think that's it from my side.
No, I'd just like to thank everyone for being here today and for reading your wonderful works. I think it was a very great experience for me. I can't think of a better way to spend a Sunday afternoon in my case. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for giving us the platform and time.
Okay, So thanks to all the poets. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Again, we'll meet next month at the fourth Sunday. Again, we're to spend a nice Sunday afternoon with all of you in Carnival of Poetry, and see you again. Have a nice day.